Ladies and gentlemen, this is Gail Morgan welcoming you to the Libertarian Counterpoint's Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. You've heard their point, now listen to the counterpoint.
Welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty. We're coming at you on January 5th, 2022, our first show of the new year. I can't believe we made it through the last year with President Screwball in charge there. But before we get into any of the topics of the day, let me introduce you to our panel. In our upper left-hand corner, we have Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. In our upper right-hand corner, we have our screaming Yule of Freedom, Tim Everett. He is a pilot in the state of California. My name is Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host today. Let's sort of jump right into it. Even though we're in a new year, we still haven't gotten rid of some of the issues from the old year. That COVID just keeps on clinging to us and chipping at our liberties. One of the main topics I wanted to bring up today was that Fauci was in an interview and he said something that we've been kind of saying for 2 years, and just to hear him say is just, I guess, I don't know whether it's refreshing or just maddening to see these guys finally coming around. But let me see if I can get the visual up on this one. So Fauci essentially was talking about children and the Omicron virus, and he was saying he was trying to downplay the fact that not all kids who are in hospitals with COVID are in the hospital because of COVID. So he literally said, if you look at the children that are hospitalized, many of them are hospitalized with COVID as opposed to because of COVID, he said. So, this has been part of the problem that we've been having for the last few years with this, is the metrics are just horrific. Some people run with the idea that, wow, look at all these kids in the hospital with COVID, and they report that, and suddenly they've got parents and citizens scared out of their mind. I remember hearing a story right at the beginning of this that somebody was passing around a sort of a libertarian Facebook page that I'm participate in, and it showed a soccer player who they said died of COVID, and the guy was like 20-something years old, and that was the headline. But then you get into the article and you found out he had leukemia. So I mean, it's just like, you start digging into it, and here the headlines are trying to scare the bejesus out of everybody with these horrific metrics, and we're just not getting an objective take on it. And so, anyways, I guess it is refreshing to see that that Lord Fauci is coming around. But what do you guys? What's your take on this?
But Jason, this problem really started, at the very beginning of the pandemic, as you rightfully said. I don't know if you remember who Dr. Deborah Bricks is, or I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly, but she was one of the COVID advisors in the Trump administration. And she said that they were going to take a very liberal view of who they're going to count as in terms of dying, who they're going to count as dying from the COVID. And in that count, we knew from the very beginning, and you're right, we have spoken about this before, that there are people who die with COVID, but they didn't die because of COVID. And now we have Dr. Fauci, the brilliant Dr. Fauci, the diabolical Dr. Fauci, trying to say the same thing, something that we've been saying here for God knows how long, that just because somebody have the COVID within their body, it does not mean they die from it. There was one ridiculous example, I believe it was in Florida, where a guy died in a motorcycle accident, or he fell off a ladder or something. I don't remember, one of them or both of them. But he did have COVID in his body, but he didn't die because of the COVID. And Minnesota went back and looked at their data, and they had to adjust their data, I believe, by like 23% or 20-something%, because there are people listed as dying from the COVID when indeed they did not die from it. They died from something else, but they had the COVID in them. So now we have the situation with kids, these little kids, some of them, and Fauci's right. For once he's right about something. That these little kids, they're in the hospital, not because of COVID, because of something else. But yet the media is reporting, oh my goodness gracious, look at all these little children are now being infected by Omicron. No. Some of them are infected from Omicron and getting sick from Omicron, but most of them are not. There are other things that are infecting these kids, appendicitis or whatever it is Fauci was talking about. That's happening. But yet the media is trying to scare us into, oh, you got to go get vaccinated. You got to vaccinate your kids. You got to do this and you got to do that. All to promote a narrative. That's all it is. It's promoting a political narrative. And the science is out the window.
Oh, Tim, your voice is muted.
Oh, that's because I muted it, because I was coughing. Thank you, Jason. So when I watch this and I see how still Jason is, I think back to my days in Catholic school when I'm jumping around and moving around and looking at this and doing that, and so I think Jason was a better Catholic boy than I ever was, because I was the kid that was busting up in the middle of church at the wrong, most inopportune times. And Jason was, if he was ever in Catholic school and had to go to his, the weekly mass on Friday afternoon or whatever, he probably was a very stoic Catholic boy, sitting in the pew and doing everything correctly.
Well, Tim, just to cut you off, with the public schools today and the religiosity that's going on there, you got to sit still just so that you don't get picked on by the orthodoxy there as well.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I never thought of that, but yeah, that's I'd even be worse in that situation. So I guess this what was it, Singapore? Not exactly what you'd call your most ungovernment loving country. It has a completely different metric for establishing whether or not somebody actually died of COVID. And there's some, either 70, I think it's 70% of what our numbers are, adjusted for population, of course. Yeah. So in other words, if you look at 100% of our COVID cases, they're really subtract 30% and you get a more exact. If you're using the metric in Singapore, you would have a more accurate, or you would have their metric. So the scuttlebutt was that it's much more scientific, I guess. Fauci, it's much more Fauci. Since we can now easily substitute Fauci for science, and anything, if it's scientific, it's really Fauci-ific. It's no longer scientific. It's Fauci-ific. And so if you really want to be Fauci-ific, you'll want to use Singapore's metric for determining whether somebody actually died of COVID.
Well, the science has spoken.
Yeah, the God of science has spoken. But the only thing that we should say, these numbers as they are, the un-Fauci numbers I'm talking about, the one that are non-scientific, these numbers are being used to push political agendas, a whole ton of political agendas upon us. And it's kind of scary because our liberties are suffering because of these numbers. And when we know a lot of it is incorrect.
Yeah. Well, and this is the problem too. This advises our shepherds, our political leaders who are out there, our would-be shepherds who want to corral us into all kinds of crazy new paradigms. And that brings us up to our next story, which is COVID related as well. And let's see here. I think I might have gotten frozen there for a second. So our next story here, we're talking about Biden and the idea that he ran on the promise of essentially saying that he was going to solve COVID. He was going to be the guy to come in and deal with COVID, and that Trump didn't know what the heck he was doing. Maybe there's some merit to that, but the point is, this guy clearly didn't know what the heck he was doing. And he's telling us he was going to be the guy to solve solve COVID. And now he recently came out and said there is no federal solution. This gets solved at the state level, even while he is still pushing things through OSHA and other places on everybody, telling them that they'll get fired if they don't get the vaccine and other such edicts. And it's funny too, because in this particular story, the governor of South Dakota, Kristi Noem, is actually saying, "Hey, that's great. If what she's saying, after a year, we finally agree. The federal government isn't the solution. That's why from the start, South Dakota took a different approach by trusting our citizens to be responsible and make the right decisions for themselves and their family. Now rescind all the federal mandates." She tweeted at Biden. You guys have any thoughts on Biden's revelation? And
well, what did they call from 1984? Double speak, or is that the term?
Newspeak?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's Newspeak.
What was it?
The Newspeak, isn't it? Newspeak?
I don't know. Something where they tell you all different things. Yeah, I mean, hey, if the federal government is not the solution, then stop trying to solve it with federal government stuff. So, yeah, rescind the federal mandates and so on. I mean, if that's really what you think, but I think it is double speak. I mean, because whether it's from 1984 or not, double speak is, he's just saying one thing and doing another, or whatever, whatever you want to call it. So it's just more of it. He doesn't remember what he said last week anyways, or never mind that this morning.
But the whole thing about this is the federal government has, the Democrats in particular, has this mentality that says one size should fit all, and this is the policies they always start off with. So these mandates that Biden came up with, which is the one that you referenced, Jason, through OSHA, which is supposed to apply to all employers with more than 100 employees, which is sort of ridiculous when you think about it, as if the COVID could make a distinction between an employer with 100 employees or more versus an employer with 100 employees or less. It's just so ridiculous that even the articulations in the mandates. But if Biden really believes, and Tim, you're right, if Biden really believes what he said, which is that there is no federal solution, and there is none, then rescind all of their mandates. Okay, rescind them, especially the vaccine mandates, which is costing people their jobs right now. But this thing now is before the Supreme Court, and maybe before the Supreme Court resolves it, I hope you will rescind the mandate itself. But it doesn't look like they're going to do this, okay? Because this is about political power, and this is about the loss of our liberties and our freedoms. Because these people think we are their servants, okay? That's what they think. We are their servants. We are just here to serve them. And I hope, now that he has said this, and which I agree with, there's no federal solution. Now that he has said this, that he will actually take action to stop this ridiculousness that is going on in our society right now because of this COVID.
Don't hold your breath.
I'm gonna try though. I'm gonna try.
Yeah. Well, and like Leon said, there are lawsuits going on, and it's one of those things that people are able to participate if they can find those lawsuits. A lot of times they're able to sign petitions and add on their voice to what's going on. So it's one of those things you might that certainly a person could look into if they were interested. Yeah, so that this crazy stuff with the COVID, it's just beyond our leaders and everything else. a big part of this is the media and social media as well, the craziness that's going on. And we had a prime example of that just happen recently as well with Joe Rogan, who just continues to, knock the ratings down with his show, just having massively more viewers than all of the cable news networks I possibly combined. I'm not sure, but in this particular case, he was interviewing just recently on his show Dr. Robert Malone, who is a pioneer in developing these RNA vaccines that are the things that people are crediting with saving our lives from COVID right now, and the idea that he would be censored for saying anything negative about the dogmatic approach that's being taken by the government is just crazy. So he had said that he really thought. I've heard him on several different shows. I think he's been on Jimmy Dore. He's been on I think Tucker's show, and he's been on a bunch of shows, I'm pretty sure. But he's been skeptical about some of the direction that they're going with this vaccine. And one of the issues was the idea of this being a cure-all. The idea that this would totally solve everything, and that this wasn't going to spread. And he's been one of those people who's been sort of a skeptic in all of this, of the government's approach. And he recently said that it's almost like some kind of mass hypnosis is what he analogized this to. What people who are just terrified and want to shut everything down forever. And so when he said that, lots of people started looking up the term that he was using, and I think he called it mass formation psychosis. And he said it's kind of like the society's been hypnotized. And so people started trying to look that up in droves on Google because Joe Rogan has such a large audience. And so Google decided to, I guess, sort of throttle this. They essentially pulled, I guess, they started to censor against the quote until they could get sources up that they thought were better. And then they came back saying that this was like some kind of right-wing new term or something, far right. So anyway, it's just an example of the, sort of the thought police there coming in and directing us. What do you guys think of this? I mean, it's kind of scary stuff, and it's not just coming from the government. That's what's so crazy about all this.
Yeah, it's horrible. I was a little distracted, but you had a picture of a bikini-clad woman in that thing. I got a little distracted. Sorry about that. But the thing. So. This is Google. Is this YouTube? Is that who wanted to throttle this, or just Google in general?
I think it was Google in general throttling the searches for this mass information psychosis, and I think that YouTube might have banned
on Twitter also, wasn't he? He was banned.
Yeah, I think YouTube might have pulled that show or whatever from the clips from that show or something. They might have throttled that so that people couldn't find it if they were looking for it. I'm not 100% sure of all of the details of it, but there was a lot of, I guess, big tech censorship that came out to keep the I guess the CDC political narrative alive. I guess, to keep us from straying.
Now everybody's looking at that picture. So I'm assuming then that there's other sources where we can watch this interview if we wanted to.
Well, he is on this. This show would have been on Spotify, I believe, is where his show currently resides, and that is a free service, so you can certainly go out and watch it there. And these clips might be popping up in other places as well, places like Rumble. And I think Joe Rogan just announced too he was opening up a Getter account as well because of Twitter censoring him. So
he's leaving Twitter and he's going to Getter. And I hope we'll go there too. Okay.
What's the name of it? Getter?
Getter.
Gettr.
Getter.
Getter is a social media platform. I think it's akin to Twitter. I don't know. I've never used it. But
well, I hope I get it.
I already know what's going through Tim's mind. He's going to go there and get her.
Yeah, I just want to. That's right. You know, I want to meet her and then I'll get her, I hope. But anyway.
Damn.
Oh my God. I'm just kidding. I have a girlfriend. Okay. It's just nonsense. I'm just being silly. I'm doing what I used to do to get in trouble in Catholic school. Okay. And so I'm just doing the same stuff. So as long as there's alternatives, you know, I think it's wrong of these private companies to flex their muscle in the world of censorship, flex their censorship muscles. But you know, if they want to be stupid, go right ahead. I mean, if they want to be known, go down in history as this is a place where you're not going to get the truth. I mean, you know, unless it's all whitewashed. Go ahead. You know, I wish them luck. They're going to need it because they're going to go out of business. This keeps going. I mean, well, maybe not. I mean, that's a far stretch, but I mean, you really have to do a lot of things wrong to do that. But Kodak did it. So, you know, if Kodak can do it, Google can do it.
Google can do it. You know, but you know, you're right, Tim, that as long as there are alternatives, I guess we should not be concerned about this. My problem.
I think we should be concerned. I'm sorry. I don't really want to say that because it's concerning, very concerning.
Okay.
But I mean, the alternatives at least are an alternative. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Leon.
Oh, sure. Okay. But my big problem with all of this is not so much that a private company may want to censor somebody on their platform. I am fine with private companies doing that kind of stuff. They should have the freedom to do that kind of thing in an economy that is relatively free. The problem begins when the government get in on the act. And I am not sure that the government did not get in on this particular act. I don't know. I have no information on that, so I'm not going to spread that as fact. But we have had information in the past. We have had disclosures in the past where the White House have been identifying problematic posts and asking Facebook to take them down. So I don't know if some of that could have happened this time too. If they are admitting, you know, that they have done this a few times, God knows how many times they might have done it without our knowledge. So this is my problem. When the government start to censor us, not directly, but indirectly, they start asking those companies like Google and Facebook and Twitter and all of these people to take posts down. We had that happening here in California where the Newsom administration was with Facebook trying to get rid of some of the political opponents through posts, removing some of their posts and that kind of stuff. So all these things to me are potentially problematic. But you're right. If it's a private company making their own private decisions, I have no problem with it. But when the government gets in on the act, we're in some real crazy waters here that we better be very careful about.
Well, speaking
so
of
you don't mind spreading, I'm sorry. So Leon, you don't mind spreading facts, but you'll spread a couple rumors now and again, right?
Why the hell?
Hey, just like the fact checkers, just like a fact checker.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
But speaking of crazy waters and crazy stories, and this is going to go right into our Knucklehead Noise Patrol. Just kind of sort of sandwich these two together. Our final story was, we got a new year and we got a new not a new Bitcoin, a new cryptocurrency rather. That new cryptocurrency is called LGBcoin. And before you jump to any conclusions, obviously it sounds like what Chappelle might refer to as alphabet people crypto. but that's not what we're actually talking about. LGB stands for Let's Go Brandon Coin. So and so the Let's Go Brandon Coin is something where apparently these guys were trying to sponsor Brandon, I can't remember his last name, but the NASCAR driver. Yeah, Brandon Brown. And so they were trying to sponsor his car because, remember, this is where that whole phrase came out of. There was a crowd chanting, as they do at many of these sporting events, F Joe Biden, they were chanting. And so a reporter sort of tried to smooth it over and say, it sounds like they're yelling, "Let's go, Brandon," because he had just won the race. And so that chant now has been going around everywhere since then. Let's go, Brandon. And so these guys were trying to take advantage of that and advertise on his car with this LGBcoin, and NASCAR had actually initially agreed to it. And then I guess somebody gave them a little bit of religion on it or something, and suddenly they started to backpedal a little bit. And so I think it's in limbo whether or not that company's going to get to put LGBcoin on his car as a sponsor. But to bring this into our Knucklehead Noise Patrol as well. So some of these people too are apoplectic because that Let's Go Brandon recently Biden got trolled at Christmas when he was talking to somebody on the live on the phone and in an interview, and they said, "Hey, let's go, Brandon." And Joe Biden, as awake as he always is, said, "Yeah, let's go, Brandon." During the interview, so he got trolled massively. And some of the reporters now on the left are literally equating this with insurrection as we're coming up on January 6th. So, let me pop over to that story as well. And so this is the story there on MSNBC. So, anyways, you guys have any quick thoughts on that as we wrap this up?
Well, stupidity is in great abundance on MSNBC. Nicole Wallace used to be a senior advisor to John McCain, to the John McCain campaign, and now I can understand why John McCain lost, because this woman have lost her mind. There's no doubt about it. She could somehow find that somebody could say, "Let's go, Brandon," and this is some kind of slow-moving insurrection. Dear God, this had to be. She and Joy Reid have to take the crown for stupidity in our society today. Tim, go ahead.
Well, yeah. What can I say? Anybody would say that. Calling it insurrection. So, welcome to America. I mean, that's just what we do. We badmouth, people we don't like, political people we don't like, and that's like most of them. So. All the time. It's been that way throughout history. So insurrection. No, insurrection is when you have you take up arms and you actually have a plan to actually take over the government. Okay, that's insurrection. So insurrection is an attack. I mean, not a verbal attack. Sticks and stones may break my bones. No, it's sticks and stones and bullets and bombs. Okay, and this chick has been, in this world of ours, devoid of anything to do with nature for so long. She doesn't know, a bear attack from a kitty cat.
Well, I tell you, it's funny. The loud roars or meows or whatever you want to call it that are coming out of the lefty media over this is just insanity. I mean, tying this to insurrection, when if we all clearly remember back in the Trump days where they had that one comedian gal who was holding up a severed head, an effigy of a severed head of Trump. They all thought that was great. But anyways, we're just about out of time, and I want to thank everybody for joining us again, and we will see you on the next one. Until then, stay free.
Life, liberty,